KirTop here, and these are the 100 strangest archaeological finds of recent years. Priestess from Peru. Archaeologists in Peru have found a burial of a woman that is over 1,000 years old. She was lying in a grave surrounded by important objects, vessels, jewelry, and fragments of fabric. These things indicate her high status. Most likely she was a priestess. The burial was arranged with attention to detail. Her body was carefully laid out, and around her were objects associated with rituals or worship. They helped to preserve her memory and status, even after death. This is not just a grave, it is a sign of respect and reverence. What is interesting is that despite its age, this find is quite well preserved. Fabric, jewelry, even bones, everything is in good condition. Sand and dryness help to preserve details that usually disappear after centuries. Icy ruins under snow. We are used to thinking of the Arctic as a place where only icy emptiness reigns, lifeless, empty, devoid of traces of civilization. But what if this is not so? What if under the thickness of glaciers there are not just traces of long-vanished peoples, but entire lost cities? Satellite research in recent years has led to the discovery of anomalous forms under the ice crust, which may indicate ancient ruins hidden deep in the depths of the north. These cities, according to some scientists, may be much older than the earliest of the civilizations known to us. Mesopotamia, Egypt, ancient India, all these peoples could have been simply a continuation of something greater and more mysterious than we can imagine. How is this possible? How could it happen that such cities are hidden under a multi-kilometer layer of ice? Today, these anomalies are at the level of hypotheses, but each new study only strengthens the mystery. Satellite images taken in the most remote corners of the planet show strange shapes and lines that resemble the structure of buildings, streets, and even entire cities. And if these hypotheses are confirmed, what if these glaciers are not just barriers but burial grounds of ancient civilizations? Ice caps that hide not only climate change but also forgotten epics of humanity. Surprisingly, perhaps these cities were victims of global catastrophes that preceded the ice ages. After all, is there anything more ancient than what is preserved by eternal ice? This question excites scientists more than ever. And perhaps if we unravel the mystery hidden under centuries-old ice, we will revise not only the history of our civilizations, but also the very understanding of how our world developed. Thunderstone. In 1782, the famous monument to Peter the Great, the Bronze Horseman, was erected in St. Petersburg. Much has been written about its creation, but the statue's pedestal, known as the Thunderstone, is a unique engineering achievement in itself. This giant granite monolith was found near St. Petersburg in the village of Konaya Lakhta. Initially, it was 13 meters long, 8 meters high, and 6 meters wide. Its weight reached 2,000 tons. Transporting such a giant in the 18th century without cranes or excavators was an incredible task. It was decided to transport it in winter using frozen soil and ice. The stone was placed on wooden sleds, and copper balls were placed under them, which rolled along specially prepared chutes. Hundreds of workers using winches and ropes moved it to the Gulf of Finland. This stage alone took 4 months. The monolith was then loaded onto a barge and delivered to St. Petersburg. However, during transportation and subsequent processing, it significantly decreased in size. Out of 2,000 tons, 1,200 tons remained. Thunderstone is the largest monolith in history that was moved manually. Even the ancient blocks of Baalbek remained in place, and this granite giant became part of one of the most recognizable monuments in Russia. Tree Guy. In Ireland, after a hurricane felled a 215-year-old beech tree, the skeleton of a young man who died in the Middle Ages was found in its roots. Surprisingly, in 1800, the tree was accidentally planted right on the grave, and its roots grew through the remains, preserving important details that allowed scientists to study the history of the young man. Analysis showed that he was 20 years old. Judging by his diet, the young man ate well and probably belonged to the wealthy part of society. However, the study also revealed a curvature of the spine, which may indicate hard physical work in childhood. The cause of death was violence. 2 notches were found on the ribs, indicating knife wounds. This case highlights the importance of chance archaeological discoveries that shed light on the personal stories of people who lived centuries ago. Early Iron Age swords. The swords were discovered during the construction of a new fire station in the Bavarian city of Andechs. These items were funerary. Each sword was buried in a separate grave along with the remains. Swords represent an important transitional stage from the use of bronze to the use of iron in weapons. Both are made of iron, but the earlier one was made in the shape and style of a Bronze Age sword. The later one, made in the same period, had an adapted design to take advantage of the stronger and more stable metal. The swords are 76 and 66 centimeters long and 6 centimeters wide. While the shorter one was probably mainly used as a stabbing weapon in hand-to-hand combat, the longer and heavier one was more suitable as a stabbing weapon that a fighter could wield from above, for example, from a horse. At the Bavarian State Heritage Office in Munich, a team of restorers cleaned the swords using microfine shot blasting technology and examined them more closely. The restorers managed to find traces of a horn on one of the so-called hilt tongues, and the hilt was probably made from this material. Two blades also contained the remains of a layered linen weave fabric, as well as the remains of a cord that must have been wrapped around it in several places. Presumably, the weapons were wrapped in cloth and buried. The Galloway Horde and another exciting discovery. A rare rock crystal jar found wrapped in cloth as part of the Galloway Horde, which dates from around 900, has been preserved and has a Latin inscription written in gold. The inscription says that the jug was made for a bishop named Hygd. The Galloway Horde is the richest collection of rare and unique Viking Age items ever found in the British Isles. It was discovered in 2014 and acquired by the National Museums of Scotland in 2017. The hoard includes more than 100 items such as brooches, ingots, glass beads, a Christian cross, and a silver vessel. Even some of the fabrics with which the materials were originally wrapped have been preserved. It is believed that a crystal jug about 5 centimeters high, resembling a richly decorated perfume bottle, served a church function. Now it has been carefully separated from the packaging. The Latin inscription on the base, written in gold letters, translates as "Bishop Hygd ordered me to make me." The inscription is in Latin, which in those days was the universal language of the Western Church. From the records of that period, we know that there were several clerics named Hygd in early medieval Northumbria. Some studies of the artifact included a 3D X-ray image. The scan was done in collaboration with the British Museum, allowing the packaged object to be examined without damaging it. Rock crystal is unusual in itself. It is one of those materials that were highly valued in the ancient world for its transparency and translucency, which is why it is associated with purity. The gold almost immortalizes it. It has become a kind of relic. Ancient jade table set. This set was discovered in the 20th century by an expedition led by Elias Sotomayor. These are 12 bowls of small size, but they all have the same size and volume of liquid. In addition to these 12 identical bowls, there is one large bowl in the service, which will fill completely, perfectly to the brim, in case you pour liquid from 12 small bowls. It all sounds strange, as if the service was created for some kind of rituals. The material of all bowls from the set is jade, which is a difficult material to process. By the way, for comparison, jade has approximately the same strength on the Mohs scale as granite, 6-7. Looking at the bowls, one gets the impression of the work of the machine or some unknown technology. Gold under the floor. A treasure trove of gold and silver coins from the end of the 15th century was discovered in the center of French Dijon. Archaeologists from the National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research, INRAP, were exploring a site near the Abbey of Saint-Benin when they discovered 34 old coins hidden in the ruins of one of the stone buildings. The house was built at the end of the 15th or the beginning of the 16th century, and the coins were hidden under the floor of the old house. Of the 34 coins found, 10 were gold and 24 were silver. They were placed in a small bronze box, only partially preserved due to damage received during urban development in the 20th century. Also found in the box was a gold pendant covered with green and white enamel. The coins were stuck together with each other from time to time. INRAP specialists were able to separate and purify them in the laboratory. After that, it was found that all the coins date back to the second half of the 15th century. The oldest of the coins is the Brabant, made of gold, and issued between 1432 and 1467. The newest is also a gold coin of Pope Innocent VIII, issued in 1484 to 1492. According to their condition, it can be assumed that the coins were not in circulation for long. The hoard contains only one French coin issued by King Louis I. and most of the coins are Italian coins, among which it is worth highlighting the silver testons issued in the Duchy of Milan during the reign of Galeazzo Maria Sforza. This find is of great numismatic interest, since only a few copies of such coins are known to exist. Weighty coins of high quality undoubtedly demonstrate the strength of power and the desire to create a reference currency at that time. This treasure is also a valuable evidence of the frequent visitation of this region at the end of the 15th century and reflects the social sphere of the market and the European trading world of that time. The states where these coins were minted include regions that played an important role in European trade at that time. Found a trace of the legendary meteorite. Scientists have found a giant crater in Southeast Asia, which is 18 kilometers long and 13 kilometers wide. It is located in a volcanic field in the southeastern part of Laos. About 800,000 years ago, a real stone monster 1.9 kilometers wide collided with the Earth. Fragments from the impact scattered over 10% of the planet's surface. Scientists have found these fragments in the form of glass beads, known as tektites, many times in Asia, Australia, and even in Antarctica. But until now, researchers have not been able to find the place where the meteorite hit. The search continued for over a century. Scientists have proven that a giant crater is buried underground, which is why the crash site was so difficult to find. When a meteorite hits the Earth, it melts the stones, scattering their splashes for thousands of kilometers. Cooling down, these drops harden and turn into what scientists call tektites. By examining the location of tektites, scientists can roughly determine the impact site of the meteorite that created them. Surrounded by two goddesses. In 1908, archaeologists made a stunning discovery. 4,500-year-old statues of Pharaoh Menkaure hidden in the sands of Giza. These sculptures have been preserved in almost perfect condition, demonstrating the highest skill of ancient Egyptian sculptors. Menkaure was not just a ruler, but the builder of one of the great pyramids, and here he is depicted surrounded by two goddesses. To the left of the pharaoh stands Hathor, the goddess of love, motherhood, and the sky, symbolizing protection and divine patronage. To the right is a female figure personifying one of the nomes, regions of Egypt, emphasizing the importance of the king as the unifier of the country. These compositions not only exalted the pharaoh, but also emphasized his connection with the gods. The sculptures of Menkaure are some of the most impressive examples of ancient Egyptian art. They lift the curtain on the past, allowing us to glimpse how the Egyptians perceived power, divinity, and kingship. Oldest hairstyle. This is an amazing find, a preserved hairstyle from an ancient Egyptian man dating back approximately 3,300 years. The intricate braids are striking in their complexity and excellent state of preservation. In ancient Egypt, hairstyles were of great importance and were often used to express status, age, and position in society. Hair care included the use of oils and fragrances, which also contributed to its longevity. Surviving details like these braids allow scientists to better understand how important appearance was to the ancient Egyptians and the skill required to create such hairstyles. Engineering miracle in Egypt. Ancient Egypt continues to amaze modern researchers again. This time, an amazing tunnel was discovered under a temple in the ancient city of Taposiris Magna, which experts call a geometric miracle. The tunnel was found at a depth of 13 meters. Its length is 1305 meters and its height is about 2 meters. It is carved into sandstone and resembles the famous Eupalinos tunnel on the Greek island of Samos, which is considered an engineering miracle. The exact purpose of the tunnel is still unknown, but some of its parts are flooded with water. Archaeologist Martinez, who has been searching for the lost tomb of Cleopatra VII since 2004, believes that the tunnel may lead to important discoveries. Taposiris Magna was founded around 280 BC by Ptolemy II, one of Cleopatra's ancestors. Archaeologists believe the temple was dedicated to Osiris and Isis, deities with whom Cleopatra was closely associated. The team also plans to explore the Mediterranean Sea, as a series of earthquakes between 320 and 1303 caused part of the temple to collapse into the water. In my previous videos, I described how tunnels were discovered connecting Lake Mariu to the Mediterranean. Bones in the wall. At first I thought it was a fake. Seriously, who would find bones in their own wall these days? But the story is real. England. A woman is renovating her home. She opens the wall, and there, among the old plaster and bricks, are real human bones. A skull, vertebrae. The police arrive and confirm that these are indeed human remains. Real ones, around the 19th century, but the exact age has not yet been determined. And that's where it gets a little uncomfortable, because you realize that between ordinary life and death, there is literally a layer of wallpaper. Everything we use to consider the past is no longer somewhere underground. It's nearby, inside the house. I don't know how these bones ended up in the wall. Maybe it was a crime, maybe it was an old buried ritual, but the fact remains, in a real house where someone slept, ate, and lived, there were human remains behind the wall. Chandar Plate. Unique artifacts appear quite often, but they are not always known to a wide range of the population. One of the latest sensations that surprised all scientists was a huge stone slab found in Bashkiria called Chandarskaya, on the surface of which a map of the area was embossed. There is no image of modern roads on it, but instead of them, incomprehensible sites are carved, later recognized as airfields. The age of the monolith weighing 1 ton was so striking that the find was announced as a gift from aliens who wanted to inhabit our planet. In any case, scientists have not received a clear explanation of how the relief outlines of the map of the region appeared on the block, whose age is determined at 50 million years. Twice the weight of a whale. The prehistoric cow lived approximately 40 million years ago in water. German paleontologists from the State Museum of Natural History in Stuttgart discovered its remains in the south of Peru, where there was an ocean in prehistoric times. 13 vertebrae were found, each weighing 100-weight, 4 1.5-meter ribs, and a giant femur. The excavation site was a shallow bay that divided the equatorial part of the continent in half. Scientists have determined that the remains belong to a creature that lived about 40 million years ago. The creature weighed approximately 340 tons. This makes it the heaviest animal to ever exist on Earth. Even the giant brontosaurs were lighter. After studying the find, scientists came to the conclusion that these huge creatures swam slowly, dived shallowly, and fed on what they found at the bottom: algae, mollusks, and small fish. In their lifestyle, they resembled sea cows, which people exterminated in the 18th century. Outwardly, they most likely also looked like sea cows, although in fact they were ancient whales of the genus Basilosaurus. The secret the CIA knew. In 2002, declassified CIA documents were made public. One of them was simply called Noah's Ark Report. It mentions a strange object on the slope of Mount Ararat, a formation that looks like the hull of a huge ship. There have been rumors about this place since the middle of the 20th century. But here's what's strange. The CIA filmed it from reconnaissance aircraft. Then they connected satellites, all for the sake of this anomaly. According to the official version, nothing special was found in the pictures, but dozens of requests to publish the footage, especially for 1974, were rejected. Why hide the images if there is nothing in them? Later, researchers collected soil samples from this place. They contain marine organisms, but Mount Ararat is located at an altitude of 4,420 meters. Does this mean that water really was here? The same one from the biblical flood? It would seem like a coincidence, but there are too many such coincidences. For too long, people have been trying to avoid this place. The Forgotten Stone. In the heart of Lebanon, not far from the ancient temple complex of Baalbek, lies one of the largest processed stone blocks in history. This giant monolith, known as the Forgotten Stone, is impressive in size: 19.6 meter long, 6 meter wide, and at least 5.5 meters high. Its weight is estimated at around 1,500 tons, the equivalent of 200 African elephants. Some researchers believe that the stone was intended for an even grander structure than Baalbek itself. However, for unknown reasons, it was never delivered to the construction site. The Baalbek temple complex, famous for its colossal megaliths, was built during the Roman rule in the first 3rd centuries AD. However, the mysterious platforms of giant blocks, including the famous Trilithon, could have appeared much earlier. Who were the ancient builders who processed and attempted to move such massive stones? Perhaps Baalbek is the legacy of an older and more highly developed civilization, the traces of which remain unsolved. The first biological weapon. Scientists have confirmed a shocking story about a biological weapon used 800 years ago in Norway. During excavations in the ruins of Sverresborg Castle, archaeologists found the remains of a man who was thrown into a well to poison the water during the height of the medieval civil war in Norway. The story is described in the Scandinavian chronicle Sverre Saga, but many historians doubted its authenticity. According to the saga, during the siege of Sverresborg, a group supporting the archbishop known as the Baglers, having failed to find King Sverre Sigurdsson, decided to use the corpse as a means of poisoning the water. To confirm this, a team of scientists conducted DNA analysis of the remains found at the bottom of the well. Back in 1938, archaeologists found the intact remains of a man in a well at a depth of 6 meters, but further research was interrupted due to World War II. It wasn't until 2016 that scientists were able to conduct further excavations, which revealed that the well man was a man in his 30s or 40s with a head injury, which may have been the cause of his death. There was no clothing around him except for a preserved leather boot. DNA analysis and radiocarbon dating confirmed that the remains did indeed date to the conflict period. Incredible floor mosaic. In the Turkish village of Salkaya, located in eastern Anatolia, a farmer accidentally discovered an ancient floor mosaic while planting saplings. The 84 square meter mosaic is believed to date back to the late Roman or early Byzantine period. It amazes with its size, intricate geometric patterns, and images of many animals and plants, such as a lion, ibex, greyhound, deer, bear, and Anatolian leopard. The farmer who discovered the artifact, Mehmet Emin Sual, reported the find to the local museum directorate and the gendarmerie. Excavations began with the support of the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism. During the excavations, ruins of a church and a wine cellar were found next to the mosaic, confirming its historical value. The mosaic is well preserved and is an important discovery for the region. Road underwater. When diving in the Hawaiian Islands, you expect to find many things: lava, craters, rare corals, but not a road, and certainly not like this. At the depths near an underwater volcano, divers noticed a strange area. Perfectly straight stone slabs, yellow in color, laid out in a row. The surface is like a sidewalk. The structure is like masonry. The angles between the slabs are too precise to be random. All this did not look like a geological formation, but like a trace of something artificial. The video quickly spread across the internet. The comments are standard: Atlantis, ancient path, aliens. But the researchers themselves were puzzled. They did not find signs of human intervention in the area, but they could not immediately explain its origin. Later, geologists got involved. According to their version, this is the result of volcanic activity. Basaltic lava quickly cooled and cracked under the pressure of water, created polygonal faults. The structure we perceive as a road is actually a natural formation, but the way it looks is confusing because it's too recognizable. We're used to nature creating chaos, and here there's order. You look at these slabs and can't shake the feeling that someone has already been here. Not you first, not the fish. Someone. Maybe it's just an optical illusion or an effect of shapes, but there's a line where science gives an answer, and you still continue to doubt. When the Sahara was an ocean. Now it seems lifeless. Endless sand, sun-baked rocks, rare caravans. But once upon a time, millions of years ago, the Sahara was completely different. It was an ocean. The Tethys Ocean is huge, warm, inhabited by ancient creatures. Ammonites, sea urchins, corals, giant reptiles. All this lived where today, lizards barely survive. Under a layer of sand, imprints of seashells, layers of limestone, and fragments of coral are still preserved. Geologists have found traces of deltas, channels, coastlines, everything that says water once splashed here. But the ocean is gone, and in its place another story arose. Hundreds of thousands of years later, people settled on this land. Some of the most ancient, whose name still sounds through the sand, the Berbers, or as they call themselves, the Amezi, descendants of those who survived the climate change, the disappearance of rivers, the drying up of lakes. They stayed when others left. Their rock paintings in Tassili and Ager are a real library of prehistoric consciousness. People hunting with bows, holidays, scenes of love and war. Even the image of creatures with rounded helmets seems to be from another reality. Some believe that this is an allegory, some believe it is evidence of contacts with another mind. But the essence is the same. When the Sahara was still breathing, the Berbers already knew how to tell their stories. They knew where to find water, how to survive when the days are hot and the nights are icy. They ruled Numidia, traded with Rome, fought with Egypt, and then they disappeared from the map, but not from the earth. The Arab conquests drove them out of the cities into the desert and mountains. But the culture survived. To this day, in remote villages, the Berber language is heard and memories that are thousands of years old live on. And in the desert itself, there are traces of a past that is much more ancient. Stone mushrooms. At first glance, they are just rocks. But if you look closely, the shape is striking. A massive cap of hard stone rests on a thin, corroded stem. These formations are the result of differential erosion. The wind, carrying sand, polishes the soft rocks for years, leaving the hard ones standing. Each such mushroom is like a timestamp. Temporary, but proud. Their legs gradually become thinner, and one day the cap will collapse. They live for hundreds, thousands of years, but they are still doomed, like the ocean, like civilizations. And only memory, in stones, in pollen, in sand, survives everything. Are there other traces of this ancient civilization, and what can they tell us about the past that we still do not understand? Beads of the Silk Road. Archaeologists have studied unique beads from the tomb of a mysterious woman nicknamed the Red Princess of the Silk Road. The burial was found in Xinjiang, China, about 15 years ago, but it has recently attracted special attention due to its unusual jewelry. The age of the find is more than 2,000 years. Experts examined 8 bright red beads and found out that they were made of rare Mediterranean corals. Analysis showed that the material was brought from the shores of the Western Mediterranean. This speaks of the long distance and amazing trade relations of ancient China because corals were considered a luxury at that time and were valued almost as much as gold and precious stones. Scientists suggest that these decorations came to Central Asia along the Silk Road, a trade route connecting the East and the West. Apparently, the beads were not just decoration, but a symbol of wealth, prestige, or power of a woman. Ancient inscriptions of the pharaohs in the Nile. Archaeological divers at the bottom of the murky waters of the Nile in Egypt examined algae-covered rock formations. At first glance, the stones seemed unremarkable. However, upon closer examination, scientists discovered several inscriptions associated with the ancient pharaohs. A joint team of Egyptian and French archaeologists decided to explore the ruins in the reservoir in Aswan. Under a layer of algae, they found several carvings that were at least 2,300 years old. The images ranged from drawings of ancient Egyptian pharaohs to hieroglyphs. The photo shows several well-preserved carved figures. The shapes are blurred by water and quite difficult to distinguish. One set of lettering appears to be a row of mannequin heads above 2 objects that resemble tombstones. These ancient inscriptions are still being studied. Archaeologists believe that these finds will help to better understand how the ancient kings ruled in those distant times. Oldest medicines. Recent discoveries at the Grotte de Pigeon cave in Tafourelt, Morocco, are changing our understanding of ancient medicine. Researchers have found evidence of herbal medicine dating back 15,000 years. Of particular interest is ephedra, a plant used in traditional Chinese medicine to treat asthma, bronchitis, and colds. The study is based on macrofossils found in late Pleistocene layers. Grotte de Pigeon is known as North Africa's oldest cemetery, containing 34 skeletons of Stone Age hunter-gatherers. Ephedra, found in ritual burials, has powerful healing properties, including epinephrine and pseudoepinephrine, which help with nasal congestion and stimulate the nervous system. Preserved ephedra fruits found in the cave indicate its use to relieve pain and stop bleeding during craniotomy, a 15,000-year-old procedure considered one of the oldest in the world. The cave is also known for its ritual tooth extraction, a painful ceremony marking the passage into adulthood. Ephedra likely helped relieve pain and bleeding, demonstrating its importance in the cultural traditions of the ancient inhabitants. These discoveries confirmed that humans already had a deep knowledge of the properties of plants 15,000 years ago, skillfully using them for both medicinal and ritual purposes long before the Neolithic period. Giant Jade Dragon. Chinese archaeologists have discovered the largest jade dragon from the Neolithic Hongshan culture. The artifact was found in the Yuan Baoshan rock tomb located in Aohan Province, Inner Mongolia. The jade dragon measures 15.8 centimeters in length, 9.5 centimeters in width, and 3 centimeters in thickness, and is a unique find, which has no analogs in the region. The excavations also revealed architectural remains, fragments of human bones, tombs, hearths, and various artifacts, including jade and painted ceramics. Among them were tripod bowls and basins. Carbon-14 dating showed that the object belongs to the late Hongshan culture and was created more than 5,000 years ago. T-Rex bag. British scientists, together with designers, have created a material that imitates the skin of a Tyrannosaurus rex. This is not just a reptile texture. They tried to recreate the exact structure that dinosaurs could have had 66 million years ago. The basis was fossilized imprints of scales preserved on fossil tracks. They studied the micro-relief, density, and arrangement of cells. Then they superimposed the data on a 3D model, added a reconstructed coloring, and prepared samples of the material. All this was done as part of an exhibition dedicated to extinct species, but the topic quickly went beyond the scientific. One of the British brands presented a concept, a bag made of artificial T-Rex skin. Of course, it was not on sale, but the idea itself caused a resonance. This is, in fact, an attempt not just to show a dinosaur, but to make it tangible, to turn an extinct predator into a thing that you can hold in your hands. No one is going to sew from real remains, but the idea itself is unexpected. A mineral that no longer exists. This stone weighs only 1.6 carats, but its price is literally incalculable. Kyauthuite is the rarest mineral on Earth. It was discovered by accident in Myanmar, in an ordinary market. Scientists have found out that its composition and crystal lattice are not found in nature anywhere else. At all. Not before, not after. The color is amber brown. The structure is like an alien object. Under the microscope, there are hollow tubes inside, formed by pressure and time. Today, Kyauthuite is stored in a Los Angeles museum. This is not just a stone, it is a mistake of nature, and perhaps a trace of an ancient geological event that science has not yet even guessed about. But what if this mineral is not just an accident of nature, but something deeper? What if its composition hides the answer to questions that we have not even asked? A hoard of gold jewelry. Archaeologists, while exploring the Karnak temple complex in Luxor, have discovered an ancient vessel filled with gold jewelry, beads, and figurines of Egyptian gods. According to experts, the find dates back to the 26th dynasty of Egypt and is about 2,600 years old. Jewelry in ancient Egypt was not just luxury items, it was considered magical amulets that protected the owner from evil and disease. They played an important role not only in life but also in the underworld, providing protection for eternity. Among the artifacts, the figurines of the god Amun, the goddess Mut, and their son Khonsu stand out. They were probably used as amulets and worn around the neck. Amun was considered the king of the gods and the patron of the pharaohs, and later united with Ra, becoming the embodiment of both the visible and invisible deity. All the found items will be restored and possibly exhibited in the Luxor Museum. Bright glass beads. Archaeologists studying the Bronze Age in northern Italy have discovered thousands of glass beads dating back more than 3,000 years at the ancient settlement of Fraticina. These vibrant artifacts shed light on the first art of glassmaking in Europe. The team found a Bronze Age clay furnace surrounded by tools and the remains of glassware, a structure that has no analogs in Europe at the time. Among the finds are many multicolored beads that have retained their rich colors, from blue to red, from white to black, with patterns in the form of swirls and spots. Even after thousands of years, their colors remain bright, as if they had just come out of the furnace. The stability of the color is explained by the unique recipe of the local glass created on the basis of sand from the Po River, which gave the products durability. Fraticina, which flourished from 1200 to 1000 BC, was a center of handicraft production and trade. In addition to glass, amber, ivory, bronze, gold, tin, and iron were processed here. New Mayan ruins. Archaeologists are finding more and more Mayan ruins thanks to new technologies and satellites that help to detect structures hidden under dense forests. As Texas Tech University archaeology professor Brett Houck told a NASA conference, scientists have discovered more Mayan sites in the last 10 years than in the previous 150 years. The main tool that helps in this is LiDAR, laser scanning technology. LiDAR allows you to see through dense forest vegetation and reveal structures that were previously hidden. With the help of this technology, archaeologists are finding more and more ruins in what is now Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. One such project is a study in northeastern Belize, where a team of scientists is studying an area of 650 square kilometers. In just a few days, scientists have discovered 28 new large sites. The technologies of the past used by the Maya to manage water and farm may still be useful today. Tim Murtha of the University of North Carolina at Charlotte noted that the Maya adapted to changing climate conditions by creating systems of terraces and reservoirs to combat droughts. These ancient techniques may hold important lessons for today's changing climate. A book with human hair. When you hear the phrase, a book made of human hair, the first thing that comes to mind is fiction, something from a cheap horror movie. But then you see a photo, and you stop smiling. These books really exist. France, 14th to 15th century. Medieval monasteries where manuscripts were bound into booklets, sewn from something that at first looked like skin. And then you realize it's hair. Real, long, light, human. For a long time, scientists could not explain why this was necessary. Only recently have more or less clear hypotheses appeared. It turned out that the hair did not just end up there by accident. It was sewn in deliberately, as a material and as a symbol. Perhaps these were reliquaries, personal items. Someone left a strand of hair in the book in memory of the dead, or on the contrary, as a vow, as part of repentance, or perhaps as an element of protection. Hair was considered to be the carriers of the soul. In one case, it was about a book of prayers, where between the pages there was not one strand, but a whole layer of hair, dense, sewn with the text. And for someone, this book could be the only connection with a dead person, or with themselves. Now imagine, you are in a library pulling out an old volume, and it is alive. Not in a figurative sense, for real, when knowledge and memory are fastened not with ink, but with a person. Trilithon. In Baalbek, in the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter, there are 3 huge stone blocks that still amaze even experienced archaeologists. They are called Trilithon. Imagine the scale. Each block weighs almost 800 tons, and the dimensions are impressive. About 19 meters long, a little more than 4 meters high, and about 3.6 meters wide. Even now, lifting and moving such giant stones would be difficult, and the ancient builders did not have cranes or special equipment at their disposal. It is still not entirely clear how exactly these giant stones were delivered and laid. It is believed that the stone blocks were moved on special wooden sleds, using logs and hundreds of workers. Some even assume that aliens participated in the construction, but serious scientists reject such hypotheses. Trilithon is not just the foundation of a temple, but a striking example of how complex the engineering knowledge of ancient civilizations was. Perhaps future discoveries will help to solve the mystery of the appearance of such massive structures in antiquity. Tunic of Alexander the Great. Archaeologists have discovered a fragment of rare purple fabric in a tomb at Vergina that may have been part of Alexander the Great's tunic and symbolized his power. The fabric was found in a gold vault next to the remains of a man buried wearing a gold wreath. The piece of fabric is a rare cotton for the time, dyed with Tyrian purple, an expensive dye associated with kingship. Purple clothing was traditionally worn by Persian kings, and Alexander adopted the practice after his victory over Darius III, emphasizing his divine status. Some historians believe that the tomb is that of Philip II, Alexander's father, while others believe that the artifacts may have belonged to Alexander himself or his brother Philip III Aridaeus, who inherited the royal regalia. Among other artifacts found were a gold diadem, a scepter, and a wreath with oak leaves, details often mentioned in historical sources about Alexander's royal regalia. The frieze of the tomb contains a hunting scene, which, according to researchers, depicts Alexander in a purple tunic. Rare artifacts from the Titanic. An alligator skin handbag and tiny perfume bottles that still exude a powerful scent are just a few of the precious artifacts found during the excavation of the sunken Titanic. The location of the warehouse containing these relics is a closely guarded secret, only known to be located in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The shelves are filled with thousands of items, from an overturned bathtub and portholes to tiny buttons and glassware. Thomasina Ray, director of collections at RMS Titanic Inc., showed off an alligator skin handbag belonging to Marion Meanwell. A third-class passenger. Marion was a 63-year-old milliner who was traveling to the United States to visit her daughter. Her bag contained important documents and photographs. Her tragic fate was that she had originally booked a ticket for another ship, but ended up on the Titanic and was one of the 1,500 who died. Other artifacts include perfume bottles belonging to Adolf Saalfeld, a perfumer and first-class passenger who survived the disaster. The scent of the perfume can still be smelled today, despite the fact that it has been lying on the ocean floor for decades. The collection also includes a bottle of champagne with the drink inside, found among the many kitchen utensils on the ocean floor. The Titanic was a luxury liner, and there was a huge amount of champagne on board for the first-class passengers who enjoyed the highest level of comfort. The tableware on board reflected the class divisions: rough white ceramics for third class, exquisite gold-rimmed plates for first-class passengers. These objects helped to recreate the atmosphere of life on board. RMS Titanic Inc., the company that is authorized to retrieve artifacts from the ship, recently announced its desire to retrieve the Marconi radio that transmitted distress signals. Some believe that the sunken ship is a burial site that should be left alone. However, Thomasina Ray notes the importance of preserving the memory of the tragedy through these artifacts. What do you think? Should the ship be left alone, or should an attempt be made to raise it to dry land? Write your opinion in the comments below the video. Headless Pit. In Slovakia, archaeologists have unearthed a burial site over 7,000 years old, almost 40 bodies, and all but one have no skulls. The bodies are neatly laid out, no signs of violence or chaos. Everything is too calm, as if someone knew what they were doing and did it according to a pattern. Only one child's head has been preserved. No one understands why. Either they spared him, or on the contrary, they left him as a sign. There are versions: a ritual, an execution, or an attempt to erase a person so that not even his image remains. Ancient Russian bagpipes in the shape of a bird. Recently, archaeologists have discovered an amazing musical instrument in Veliki Novgorod, a leather bagpipe bag in the shape of a bird from the 12th century. This is the first such find in the territory of ancient Rus, which changes our understanding of the musical traditions of our ancestors. The bagpipe bag is made of the finest leather. Its length is about 72 centimeters, width 45. The most unusual thing about the find is the manufacturing technology. The leather was glued in 2 layers without the use of threads, which ensured tightness. This is absolutely atypical for that time. Historians have previously found individual parts of bagpipes in Novgorod. For example, in 2015 they found a playing pipe, and in 2018 a blowing pipe. But a complete one-piece bagpipe in the shape of a bird has been found for the first time. This means that Novgorodians did not just use musical instruments borrowed from other cultures, but had their own tradition of making them. By the way, the shape of the bird could have had a symbolic meaning and was possibly connected with ideas about the spiritual world or natural forces. Similar traditions are known in other regions of Eastern Europe. For example, in Belarus and Poland, the bagpipe is still called duda and koza. Cursed emeralds. These emeralds, which are called cursed, became one of the most tragic finds in the history of treasure hunting. They were discovered by J. Miskovich, a man who dedicated his life to searching for ancient treasures. In 2010, off the coast of Florida, he managed to find a deposit of emeralds valued at several $million. At first glance, this was luck, capable of changing his life for the better. However, the find soon attracted the attention of not only the media, but also federal agencies, including the FBI. Legal proceedings and inspections began, the purpose of which was to determine the origin of the precious stones. Complex legal battles and public pressure turned Miskovich's life into a nightmare. Constant accusations and pressure from the authorities made his existence unbearable, and he eventually committed suicide. This tragedy became the basis for the legend of the Cursed Emeralds, which brought their owner not wealth and success, but pain and suffering. Today, the story serves as a grim reminder that great discoveries can sometimes have horrific consequences. Unusual remains of ancient monkeys. In one of the caves on the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean Sea, fossilized remains of ancient primates were found, which probably became the prey of a large predatory owl. The discovery was reported in the Journal of Human Evolution. Excavations were carried out in a flooded cave in the Dominican Republic, where archaeologists discovered 7 skulls, 5 lower jaws, and many other skeletal fragments. Scientists came to the conclusion that these remains belonged to the species Antilothrix bernensis, which became extinct about 10,000 years ago. According to the study, the primates that lived on Hispaniola weighed up to 2 kilograms and probably lived in small families, eating fruit. Experts suggest that the remains ended up at the bottom of the cave after an attack by a predatory bird. Professor Siobhan Cook notes that marks on the bones indicate that these primates fell victim to a large owl. The skulls and jaws show damage typical of birds of prey.
Hidden secret of the past. Recently, a team of Russian scientists led by a crystallographer from St. Petersburg State University deciphered the structure of one of the rarest minerals on the planet, uramphite. This unusual mineral was first discovered 70 years ago at the secret uranium deposit Terracotta in Kyrgyzstan, but at that time its detailed structure could not be revealed. And recently, luck smiled on the scientists again. They found uramphite at the Russian deposit Beshtau in the Stavropol territory. Uramphite is a uranium micas and contains ammonium. This mineral has a bright luminescence and was previously used in photography, but despite numerous attempts to study it, its exact structure remained a mystery until 2023. Thanks to the latest equipment, scientists were able to study in detail a crystal only a few millimeters in size. The mineral turned out to be unstable, so finding a high-quality sample is a real stroke of luck. Only 11 uranium minerals with ammonium are known. Most of them were found in the United States, where ammonium is formed from organic matter, such as decomposed animal remains. Ruled even after death. The Incas had a unique attitude towards their deceased rulers, considering them not simply as deceased, but as continuing to live and rule even after death. The mummies of the rulers were preserved and revered as if they were alive, possessing their own lands and wealth. Surprisingly, the domains of such mummies continued to be managed by their servants, and the mummies themselves participated in important rituals and even meetings. These rulers were believed to be able to give advice and influence the life of society while remaining the eternal masters of their lands. Over time, this created difficulties, as large areas ended up under the control of the dead, which interfered with the distribution of resources and the management of lands among the living. This influence of the mummies of the rulers became a challenge for Inca society, especially in a context of limited resources. The Incas tried to maintain a balance between the veneration of ancestors and the needs of the living, which makes their culture unique and deeply symbolic. This phenomenon highlights how closely spiritual and practical life were intertwined among the Incas. New Giant Pyramid. A giant underground pyramid, Gunung Padang, has been discovered in Indonesia, surpassing Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza in antiquity. This place, shrouded in mystery and considered sacred by local residents of the island of West Java, is known as the Punden Berundak, the Step Pyramid. Archaeological work has only just begun, but has already shown that Gunung Padang may be the oldest pyramidal structure in the world, created on top of an extinct volcano before the advent of agriculture. New research suggests there may be chambers full of the unknown inside the hill. The name Mountain of Enlightenment emphasizes that an ancient civilization could have turned a volcanic hill into the base of a pyramid many millennia ago. Radiocarbon dating shows that construction began around the last ice age, making it older than 16,000 years ago and possibly even 27,000 years ago, putting it on par with Göbekli Tepe in age. Between 2011 and 2015, a team conducted a comprehensive analysis using drilling and seismic surveys. They found that Gunung Padang was built in several stages. While exploring the interior of the hill, scientists discovered signs of hidden chambers, some of which reach 15 meters in length and 10 meters in height, which confirms the uniqueness and mystery of this ancient structure.
General's gold jewelry. In 2020, a huge trove of gold artifacts was found in Vindelev, Denmark, dating back to pre-Viking age migrations. The finds included 23 gold objects, including 13 5th-century bracteates, gold fittings possibly from weapons, and 4 4th-century Roman medallions. Particularly noteworthy is the runic inscribed bracteate, the largest ever found, containing a reference to Odin, a key figure in Norse mythology. Research into these medallions has shed light on possible cultural and social connections between Vindelev and other regions of Europe. It is assumed that the medallions could serve as wedding ransoms or high gifts in elite circles. These gold medallions were probably worn by women as pendants, indicating the high status of their owner, who carried weight both locally and internationally. The peculiarity of these medallions is that they were given to prominent Roman figures such as senators and generals, and their presence in Vindelev, far from the Roman Empire, underscores the importance of this find. Strange rock on the beach. Traveler Kyle Finley, while walking along Edisto Beach in South Carolina one evening, discovered a fossilized tooth of a prehistoric American mastodon. Kyle has been vacationing on Edisto Beach with his family since childhood. Finding fossils had always been his favorite pastime, but this find came as a complete surprise. A representative from the Natural History Museum in London confirmed that Kyle's photographs do indeed show a tooth from an American mastodon, or Mammoth americanum. The American mastodon is a distant relative of mammoths and elephants that lived in North America from the late Miocene to the late Pleistocene and went extinct about 10,000 years ago. These animals were lower and stronger than mammoths. Females reached 2 meters in height and males up to 3. Previously, megalodon teeth and the remains of other prehistoric mammals were found on this beach. Face of Amenhotep III. Amenhotep III ruled ancient Egypt 3,400 years ago at the height of its power. Considered one of the richest men in history, he was revered as a living god and was the grandfather of Tutankhamun. Now we can see his true face thanks to scientific reconstruction. Amenhotep III led Egypt to unprecedented prosperity and international power. There are more statues of him than any other pharaoh, but his face has never been reconstructed. An international team of scientists decided to show us what this man looked like. Michael Habicht, an archaeologist at Flinders University in Australia, notes that Amenhotep III looked different than in his statues. This suggests that all the Egyptians who lived after his death did not know what he really looked like. His face after reconstruction expresses the calm of a man who stood for peace and lived in an era of economic prosperity. Research showed that the pharaoh was obese, sick and inactive, suffered from dental problems, was almost bald, and had a height of only 156 centimeters, which made him one of the shortest pharaohs. Brazilian graphics expert Cicero Moraes digitally reconstructed Amenhotep III's skull using data from living donors to determine the size and position of the nose, ears, eyes, and lips. The reconstruction also took into account historical data about his strong physique. This is the first close-to-reality image of the face of Amenhotep III, which includes not only the face, but also clothing and accessories. Amenhotep III died between the ages of 40 and 50, leaving his successor a country at the peak of power and wealth. In diplomatic letters, foreign rulers begged him to send them gold, describing Egypt as a country where gold was as abundant as sand. There is speculation that Amenhotep III's mummy may have been covered in gold leaf, making it look like a statue of a god. It is also suggested that the pharaoh was a great connoisseur of women, importing hundreds of foreign harem ladies. After the death of Amenhotep III, his son Amenhotep IV changed his name to Akhenaten and established the cult of the sun god Aten. However, his son Tutankhaten restored the cult of Amun and changed his name to Tutankhamun, becoming one of the most famous pharaohs thanks to the discovery of his tomb in 1922.
5,000-year-old dwarven village. The village of Makunik, located on the border with Afghanistan, is unique for its small houses built thousands of years ago. The height of these houses does not exceed 1.5 meters, and modern Iranians can barely enter them without bending over. Inside these houses, local residents stood tall, as their height did not exceed 1.5 meters. The small stature of the inhabitants was due to a lack of food and vitamins, which slowed down the growth of bones. Also, marriages between close relatives due to isolation and lack of funds for travel contributed to this. Life in the village was difficult. The soil was poor, and the inhabitants grew only low-maintenance crops such as turnips and barley. The situation has changed with the development of infrastructure in Iran. The construction of roads made it possible to deliver a variety of food products to the village, including meat and grains. This resulted in each generation becoming 10 centimeters taller. Modern residents of Makunik are tall and healthy people thanks to subsidies and government support. Today, 700 people live in Makunika next to the small houses of their ancestors. They continue to farm, but now their bodies are strong and tall. The village's history illustrates how harsh conditions and poor soil made the inhabitants Lilliputians, and the development of infrastructure and government support restored them to normal growth and health. Queen Cleopatra's handwriting. Egypt, a land that holds many secrets of the past, has once again surprised the world community. Archaeologists have discovered a papyrus with an ancient decree dating back to 33 BC, which experts believe was signed by Cleopatra herself. This document demonstrates the high status of the Roman officer Publius Canidius, who was exempt from paying taxes. Particular attention was drawn to the Greek word gynostoi, translated as "let it be," written probably by the hand of the queen herself. Such a subject gives scientists a unique opportunity to look into the life and administrative activities of the ancient Egyptian monarchy. Dutch professor Peter van Minnen emphasizes that the structure of the document and the absence of a formal introduction from Cleopatra make the text a personal message from the queen to a high-ranking official. The discovery confirms the hypothesis that Cleopatra actively participated in government, not limited to just the symbolic role of the monarch. The papyrus talks about the close diplomatic and economic ties between Egypt and Rome. Such papyrus, which may contain the handwriting of one of the most famous women in history, is a true treasure for historians and archaeologists. And although many aspects of Cleopatra's life still remain a mystery, each new discovery brings us closer to understanding this mysterious and great queen. Heavenly stones. Among the vast number of meteorites that have fallen to Earth over billions of years, skystone, with its bluish tint and unusual oxygen-rich composition, is of particular interest to scientists. This space fragment, discovered in West Africa in Sierra Leone by archaeologist and geologist Angelo Pittoni in 1990, is shrouded in legends. Local residents believe that these stones were former celestial beings turned into stones for their sins and dropped to Earth. Tests carried out in laboratories in Rome, Germany, and Tokyo showed that the stone consists of 77% oxygen, 20% carbon and lime, and also contains traces of silicon and other materials. This composition was recognized as unique and unlike other terrestrial samples, indicating the extraterrestrial origin of the stone. Carbon dating has shown that the skystone ended up on Earth between 2,500 and 17,000 years ago, becoming the object of a collector's hunt. Along with skystone, the Hypatia stone found in Libya is no less a mystery for scientists. Its chemical composition is different from anything found on Earth or in space. Hypatia is material formed before the formation of our solar system. Thus, skystone and Hypatia stone continue to attract researchers with their mystery and unique composition. Would you like to own one of these stones? $20 billion treasure ship. The galleon San Jose, which sank on June 8, 1708 during a naval battle with an English squadron, became one of the most famous underwater finds. A gunpowder explosion occurred on board the ship, which was carrying 600 people, leading to its destruction and subsequent sinking in the Caribbean Sea. Believed to be lost for centuries, the San Jose was discovered in 2015 by the Colombian Navy at a depth of about 700 meters. On board the ship are chests filled with gold, silver, and emeralds, valued at between $4 billion and $20 billion. The situation around the galleon's treasures is complicated by the fact that they are claimed by the American company Sea Search Armada, which claims to have found the wreck of the ship in 1981. The company, through the court, is demanding from the Colombian government half the value of the treasure, $10 billion. In response, the Colombian president turned to creating a public-private partnership to implement the Treasure Recovery Project. Treasures of Ghana. Two leading British museums have agreed with the Ghanaian government to return gold artifacts stolen in the 19th century. Last May, the Asante Hene, King of Ghana, met in London with the directors of the British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum. It was decided to transfer 32 gold exhibits taken by the British 150 years ago to Ghana for 3 years. In 1874, the British plundered the royal palace in Ghana. In 1896, another military operation took place, leading to further robberies. The museum's joint statement acknowledged that the seized items have cultural and historical significance to the Asante people and are linked to British colonial history. Items being returned include a golden peace pipe purchased at auction for £85, as well as rings, scabbards, soul discs, knives, and necklaces. The British feared that this agreement could become a precedent for the return of other items captured during the colonial wars. Personally, I am very glad that finally valuable exhibits from museums are gradually beginning to return to their homeland. New species of predator. Scientists have discovered the skull of Bastatotan Certos in the Egyptian desert, a new species of predator that lived 30 million years ago. This large carnivorous mammal belonged to the extinct group of hyaenodonts and occupied the top of the food chain, hunting primates, ancient hippos, and elephants. Bastetodon got its name in honor of the goddess Bastet, patroness of cats and protector from troubles. Its muzzle and teeth really resemble those of a cat. This animal was comparable in size to a leopard, had powerful jaws and sharp teeth, allowing it to be a formidable hunter. The discovery was made in the Fayum Depression, which millions of years ago was a green forest and is now turned into a desert. This place is a storehouse of knowledge about the ancient ecosystems of Africa. Hyaenodonts dominated among predators, but climate change and the emergence of more advanced competitors led to their extinction. Now their place in nature has been taken by the ancestors of modern cats and dogs.
Lost part of the statue of Ramesses II. In 1930, German archaeologist Günther Raeder discovered in Egypt the lower part of a statue of Ramesses II, known as Ramesses the Great, who reigned from 1279 to 1213 BC. The statue was split and its upper part remained lost for centuries. After a long search, the upper part of the statue was finally found in Hermopolis, which was turned into an open-air museum. The discovery was made thanks to the efforts of archaeologists from Egypt and the United States during excavations in Hermopolis, which is located near Al-Ashmunin. Hermopolis was one of the main religious centers of antiquity, dedicated to the god of wisdom Thoth. The upper part of the statue, 3.8 meters long, discovered under layers of sand, depicts the pharaoh wearing a traditional cobra headdress. The statue is made of limestone, with hieroglyphs glorifying Ramesses II engraved on its back. The find also contained traces of ancient paint, which will enable scientists to accurately date the creation of the statue and establish its origin. Ramesses II is known as one of the greatest pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt. During his long life, he built many significant structures and strengthened Egypt's military and diplomatic power.
Love conquers all. The artifact was found during archaeological work on a 15th century harbor crane sandwiched between two defensive towers. Polish archaeologists have discovered a medieval decoration in the shape of a dove with the Latin inscription Amor vincit omnia, love conquers all. The dove badge contains the remains of two handles, which allowed it to be hung on a chain or attached to clothing. For the ancient Greeks and Romans, the dove symbolized love, devotion, and care. The dove was the sacred animal of the love goddesses Aphrodite and Venus. Dr. Anna Rimbish-Lubievska, an archaeologist at the museum, says pigeons are associated with love and fidelity. A pair of doves symbolizes care and devotion to a partner, making them the perfect symbol of love and family. The National Maritime Museum in Gdansk said that such decorations were popular in Gdansk between the 14th and 15th centuries. This fashion came from Western Europe, especially from the Netherlands and England. This harbor crane was once the largest working crane in the world. It also served as a defensive structure and one of the city gates. The crane had a lifting capacity of 4 tons to a height of 11 meters, which was achieved thanks to 2 massive wooden wheels at the base, each of which had a diameter of 6 meters. Since 2020, work has continued to restore the port crane, which was severely damaged during World War II.
1,500-year-old relic. Archaeologists from Innsbruck have discovered a rare ivory reliquary in an early Christian church in Irschen, southern Austria. This unique artifact, which is about 1,500 years old, is a box measuring approximately 20 by 30 centimeters, decorated with Christian symbols. A team of archaeologists led by Gerald Grabherr has been excavating the region since 2016. On August 4, 2022, they found the reliquary under the altar in the side chapel of the church. Although the artifact was damaged, researchers were able to identify it as a pyx, a round ivory container richly decorated with Christian motifs. This discovery was the first of its kind in Austria. There are about 40 such chests known throughout the world, and the last one was found about 100 years ago. Most picks are kept in cathedral treasures or displayed in museums, making this find especially valuable. Ivory lying underground absorbs moisture, becomes soft, and is susceptible to destruction. Conservation of the artifact required careful and lengthy drying to prevent shrinkage and cracks. For 2 years, fragments of the reliquary were preserved for scientific analysis. Researchers are working on a 3D reconstruction of the picks. This process will provide a deeper understanding of the history and significance of this unique find. 1,500-year-old Mayan palace. On the Yucatan Peninsula in the city of Caba, archaeologists made a unique discovery related to the ancient Mayan civilization. Researchers discovered 2 luxury residential complexes and a majestic 26-meter-long palace. Rectangular columns are visible on the facade of the building, and its decor is made in the form of images of birds, feathers, and beads. Remains of ceramics, including painted vessels, were found inside the premises. Lourdes Toscano Hernandez, who is leading the research project, emphasizes that these premises were home to those who governed the city and may have performed administrative functions. Despite their grandeur, until recently, these architectural structures were hidden under dense vegetation. The dating of the buildings has yet to be done, but it is known that the city of Kabag was founded between 250 and 500 AD. Magic circles in the desert. For decades, scientists have puzzled over the origins of circular patches of grass in the Namibian desert that appear and disappear seemingly for no reason. Now it seems the mystery has been solved. These so-called magic circles with a diameter of 2 to 10 meters form an amazing pattern on the surface of one of the driest places on Earth. For a long time, their origin remained a mystery. There were 2 main theories. One associated the circles with the activity of termites. The second suggested the self-organization of grass to combat drought. Recently, scientists from the University of Göttingen in Germany proposed a new theory. They believe that the circles can form due to extremely rare and irregular precipitation. This causes the grass to grow at the edges of the circles, leaving the center lifeless since it is the roots of the grass, extending to great depths, that allow the plants to survive and thrive in conditions of low water. This discovery not only reveals the mystery of Namibia's magical circles, but also demonstrates nature's amazing ability to organize itself and adapt to changing environmental conditions. Ritual axe 4,500 years old. In China, in the city of Wuxi, archaeologists have discovered an ancient ritual weapon, an engraved axe that is 4,500 years old. The axe belongs to the Liangzhu culture, one of the most developed cultures in China at that time. This culture lived in the Yangtze River Delta, but when the floods occurred, the people of Liangzhu were forced to leave their capital and settlements. This led to their complete extinction around 2300 BC. Scientists have found 329 stone tools, 73 stone and bone arrows, and many other ceramic and jade artifacts. The most interesting is the axe, on which images of tigers, patterns of clouds, and birds are engraved on both sides. The axe was found on a sacrificial platform and shows signs of wear and damage. Scientists believe that the axe was not used in battles, but in rituals and ceremonies to symbolize power. Liu Baoshan, head of the local archaeological institute, said the patterns on the axe were made with a harder stone tool. This is the first tiger engraved axe found in the region. Now we will dive into history even deeper and find out what our ancestors ate more than 100,000 years ago.
An artifact more valuable than gold. In 2023, in Carlisle in the north of England, on the site of an ancient Roman bath, a unique artifact made of a special substance was discovered, more valuable than gold for the ancient Romans. This item, found by volunteers and archaeologists, is a solid example of Tyrian purple. To obtain this ancient dye, it was necessary to process about 12,000 shellfish living in the Mediterranean region. Tyrian purple, best known for its production in the city of Tyre in Lebanon, was prized for its brightness and durability and was used for dyeing clothing and wall paintings. The process of its production was complex and labor-intensive, which made this pigment extremely expensive and accessible only to the highest strata of society of the Roman Empire. The specimen found at Carlisle was used to create murals or dye fabrics. This is the only known example of a solid example of Tyrian purple in Northern Europe and possibly throughout the Roman Empire. This discovery not only highlights the complexity and richness of ancient Roman culture, but also contributes to further study of the interactions of ancient civilizations and the spread of their cultural and material achievements beyond traditional boundaries.
How the Mayans cooked rubber. The Mayans got rubber from two juices. They take the white milky juice of the rubber tree. They add a little green juice of a forest liana. They stir it with a stick, and the liquid thickens before their eyes, darkens, and becomes viscous. After a couple of minutes, what they have in their hands is no longer milk, but a soft, elastic mass. They knead it, roll it, dry it, and the result is a material that springs back and does not creep. Why it works in simple terms. The white juice is latex, many tiny droplets of rubber in water. The liana juice changes the environment and the drops begin to stick together. The mass becomes solid and elastic. No ovens or sulfur. Everything is done in the cold from plant materials. The hardness was regulated by proportions. If it is softer, they add less liana juice and knead it longer. If a strong ball is needed, they add more and dry it thicker. The master literally tuned the material to the task with his hands like dough. They made heavy bouncing balls for games from this so that they would bounce off the floor and walls. Glue and sealant for vessels and boats. Impregnation for baskets and fabric so that they would not leak. Pads for handles and sandals so that they would not slip and last longer. Rubber was molded into ingots and taken for exchange. It was a valuable commodity. And most importantly, all this was an ordinary craft. Two juices, a stick for stirring, a little experience, and you have ready-made rubber in your hands long before the factories and vulcanization in Europe. Rare astronomical instrument. An 11th century medieval brass astrolabe was discovered by accident, but has proven to be an important piece of evidence of cross-cultural scientific interaction. Created in Spain, it later received inscriptions in different languages as the new owners adapted it to their own needs. This artifact is unique, like a palimpsest, reflecting the changing ideas and needs of its owners. This is not just a rare example of an ancient instrument. This is a powerful testimony to the scientific exchange between Arabs, Jews, and Christians over the centuries. The Verona astrolabe has undergone many changes, passing from hand to hand. At least 3 owners added translations and corrections, 2 in Hebrew and 1 in Indo-European. Astrolabes are maps of the sky with rotating parts that help determine position in time and space. They were useful for navigation, astronomy, and astrology. Peaceful people in America. The sacred city of Corral Supe, located on a desert terrace in Peru, was discovered by archaeologists in 1948. This ancient city, estimated to be 5,000 years old, is recognized as one of the oldest in the Western Hemisphere and is considered the cradle of civilization in the Americas. The main architectural landmark of Corral is the Pyramid Mayor, almost 30 meters high and the size of 4 football fields. Built around 2600 BC, it is comparable in age to the ancient pyramids of Egypt. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials confirms that Corral Supe existed at the same time as the Egyptian pyramids. Artifacts found at Corral, such as the quipu, a system of knots used to store information, indicate a high level of development and influence on subsequent Andean civilizations. Architectural features, including pyramidal structures and elite residences, indicate a complex socio-political organization and a powerful religious ideology. The absence of traces of war, such as fortifications and weapons, indicates the peaceful nature of the society based on trade and pleasure. In 2009, Corral Supe was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its architectural heritage and influence on later Andean civilizations.
Curse of the Terracotta Army. The majestic Terracotta Army, one of the most amazing archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, remained underground for a long time, hidden from the eyes of mankind. This incredible discovery was made by accident by peasants in the 1970s in the city of Xi'an in northwest China. While they were digging a well, their shovels came across fragments of ancient pottery. No one could have imagined that a whole army of 8,000 clay warriors was under their feet. However, behind the beauty and grandeur of this archaeological wonder lies a dark secret. Legends say that thousands of workers who worked to create this army were buried alive along with the statues to keep the location of the tomb secret. Over time, many of those who tried to explore this place or even just touch the statues encountered misfortunes and troubles. This gave rise to rumors about the curse of the Terracotta Army. Among local residents, there is a belief that the spirits of ancient warriors guard their emperor and do not forgive any contact with their statues. All this makes the story of the Terracotta Army even more exciting and mysterious, reminding us that sometimes the past can come back to remind us of itself. And while millions of eyes look at the majestic statues of warriors, somewhere in the depths, secret guardians continue to guard the ancient secret. Celtic village and Roman settlement. Archaeological breakthrough in Munich. On the northern outskirts of this German metropolis, scientists have stumbled upon an amazing discovery: the remains of an ancient Celtic village dating back 2,500 years and traces of Roman settlers. This village, flourishing during the era of the Celtic civilization of Latine, was home to our ancestors right up to the first millennium AD. And now, while digging for a new residential area, archaeologists have discovered houses from that era whose outlines we see as mysterious circles on the ground. At the very center of the settlement stood an imposing building surrounded by wooden structures resembling colonnades, possibly a gathering place for the local community. Archaeologists also found different types of dwellings and evidence that the inhabitants lived in half-timbered houses. The amazing cemeteries of this era, with evidence from Celtic and Roman times, make us understand that this area was inhabited and rich for many centuries. Each ceramic plate, jug with intact handle, drinking vessel made of soapstone, and even the rare sickle from the burials tell stories of days long gone. 100,000 ancient coins. In Maebashi, Japan, archaeologists have discovered a unique find: over 100,000 ancient coins, including Chinese Banliang coins dating back to 175 BC. These coins, found during the construction of the factory, cover the period from the 7th to the 13th centuries. They were tied into bundles of 100 pieces using sashi straw ropes. This site, close to the ruins of a Qin dynasty palace, was chosen to hide the treasure, probably because of the approaching war. A total of 10 60 sasha bundles were found, some of which contained up to 1,000 coins. Analysis of 334 coins from the hoard revealed 44 different types of currency, spanning the period from the Western Han dynasty to the Southern Song dynasty. The earliest Banliang coin has a diameter of 2.3 centimeters, a square hole in the center, and a thickness of 1 mm. The latest coin dates from 1265, indicating that the treasure was hidden during the Kamakura reign. An ancient toy for adults. The artifact, which is already more than 2,000 years old, was found in Great Britain back in 1992. Initially, archaeologists assumed that this wooden object was used as a sewing tool. However, further study suggested that it could be an ancient sexual device. Most scientists agree that the wooden object found is in the shape of a phallus. The uniqueness of this artifact is that it has not changed its shape and method of use even after thousands of years. And the most interesting thing is that its shape will not change in the future for obvious reasons. However, there are several versions regarding the use of this artifact. As a sex toy. Based on Roman images, it is known that they had dildos, but they rarely came down to us because they were most often made from organic materials. Also, some archaeologists suggest that slave owners could use such an object to inflict pain and demonstrate power over slaves. Others believe it could have been a good luck charm. Indeed, in ancient times, amulets of this shape were very common. As a final option, it could be used as a mortar for grinding or mixing spices and other materials used for culinary or medicinal purposes.
10,000-year-old chewing gum. 10,000 years ago in what is now Sweden, a group of teenagers chewed birch tar, similar to children chewing gum today. They could not even imagine that in the future, scientists would analyze their chewing remains and find out many interesting facts about their diet, lifestyle, and even health. 3 pieces of birch pitch used as glue in the Stone Age were found in the 1990s at a site called Huseby Cleve. Microbial DNA analysis of the resin showed high levels of bacteria associated with gum disease, such as Treponema denticola and Streptococcus aeruginosus. The study of these samples showed that the ancient teenagers suffered from caries and periodontal disease and also ate deer, trout, hazelnuts, and processed fox and wolf fur. Scientists have also found traces of birds and other animals, indicating their use as food and the processing of bones into tools. Traces of mistletoe were found in the gums of the specimens, suggesting the plant's possible use in medicine or as a poison for arrowheads. The discovery provides a unique insight into the lives of hunter-gatherers on the west coast of Scandinavia 9,700 years ago, allowing us to learn about their diet and dental problems. And we are only talking about very old chewing gum that children chewed. And thanks to modern technologies, they can already tell so much about the lifestyle of people who lived 12,000 years ago.
Treasure older than the Iron Age. Researchers have finally uncovered the mystery of two unusual artifacts from the gold treasures of Valena. A pair of pieces of jewelry, partly of extraterrestrial origin, have been found in Iberian Bronze Age treasures. The dull bracelet and the rusty hollow hemisphere decorated with gold turned out to be forged from metal that fell from the sky in the form of a meteorite. The discovery was made by Salvador Rovira Loren, former head of conservation at the National Archaeological Museum of Spain. His work showed that metalworking technologies and techniques in Iberia 3,000 years ago were more advanced than previously thought. The Treasures of Valena cache includes 66 items found in 1963 in what is now Alicante. These pieces are considered a prime example of Bronze Age jewelry in the Iberian Peninsula and Europe. Two pieces of jewelry, a small hemisphere and a bracelet in the shape of a hrivnia, have elements that archaeologists have called iron. This posed a problem since the Iron Age on the Iberian Peninsula began around 850 BC, and gold jewelry dates back to between 1500 and 1200 BC. The difference between meteorite and terrestrial iron is the high nickel content of meteorite iron. Despite the rust, the results of the study showed that the hemisphere and bracelet were made from meteorite iron, dating back to approximately 1400 to 1200 BC.
Found a treasure using grandfather's old map. Two brothers from Germany found a treasure in Lubomierz, Poland, using a map drawn by their grandfather in 1952. They went on vacation to Poland, and one of their destinations was Lubomir, where their grandfather, who worked as a gardener, buried valuables before leaving. A map found in the family archive helped them find the place described by a relative. Arriving in Lubomierz, the brothers asked local residents for a shovel for excavation, but their actions seemed suspicious, and a local resident reported them to the police. Excavations were temporarily stopped until the brothers received the necessary permits. After the formalities were settled, archaeologists joined the excavations. Grandfather's map turned out to be not just a map, but a letter indicating the location of the treasure burial. At the designated location, the brothers found two antique jugs containing valuable finds, including watches, jewelry, 19th century coins, and a cigarette case from 1935. Apparently, these items were war trophies. The discovered artifacts were sent for examination to assess their historical significance. If they prove valuable, they can be legally seized and given to a museum. Otherwise, the treasures will be returned to the brothers. Egyptian sarcophagus and the Simpsons. Archaeologists have discovered something unique in an Egyptian tomb, a 3,500-year-old sarcophagus depicting Marge Simpson from the popular modern animated series. The lid of the sarcophagus depicts a yellow-skinned woman wearing a green dress and a blue crown, reminiscent of Marge's famous hairstyle. But in fact, the sarcophagus belongs to the New Kingdom and depicts the goddess Nut. The tomb belonged to a 16-year-old girl whose parents probably did not have much money. However, they tried to do everything possible for a dignified burial of their daughter. As for such a coincidence, there are two options. Either the Egyptians predicted The Simpsons, or the creator of the series, Matt Groening, has secret knowledge about ancient cultures. Also, amulets, jewelry, and stone and wooden sarcophagi were found in the tomb. New Kingdom sarcophagi were often decorated with carvings and paintings depicting the dead, deities, and scenes from the Book of the Dead. What do you think? Why was the coincidence so realistic? Write your opinion in the comments.
Earliest depiction of a kiss. Are you ready to dive into the world of a real archaeological detective story? Today, we have a special episode about the oldest kiss in the history of mankind. Yes, you are not mistaken. We are going on a journey to the origins of romance and perhaps even herpes. Do you know where the first kiss in history originated? Researchers from the University of Copenhagen found traces of it in Mesopotamia in the ancient Near East, and that was about 4,500 years ago. Scientists say that people were already practicing kissing back then, and this may even have contributed to the spread of herpes. It sounds a little scary, but it proves that kissing has been an important part of our lives for thousands of years, across cultures and regions. Imagine, guys, in ancient Mesopotamia, people used clay tablets for writing, and some of them described kissing as part of romantic intimacy and friendship. And even our closest relatives, bonobos and chimpanzees, also kiss. Here is your proof that kissing is not just our whim, but the basis of our communication and relationships. That's just interesting. Could the herpes simplex virus be transmitted through these very early kisses? Ancient Mesopotamian medical texts mention a disease that resembles herpes in symptoms. Of course, we can't be 100% sure it's herpes, but the resemblance is amazing. It turns out that both romance and disease connect us with ancient people much more than we could imagine.
The power of authority. A man in a white coat calmly says, "Go on." Behind the wall, a student is complaining about his heart and screaming. In front of you is a control panel with switches from 15 to 450 volts and a table of errors. You are the teacher. An error means punishment. Each subsequent error is a higher rank. This is what Stanley Milgram's experiment looked like at Yale in the early 1960s. The volunteer thought it was a memory study. In fact, the student was an actor and the screams were pre-recorded. The task was to check how far an ordinary person would go if an authority figure stood nearby and confidently asked, "Please go on." The experiment requires you to go on. The current scale had harsh labels like danger and XXX. At around 330 volts, the student fell silent, as if he had lost consciousness. The results shocked everyone who could believe that an ordinary person wouldn't do this. About 2/3 of the participants reached the maximum, 450 volts. Almost everyone was stressed. Their hands were shaking, the participants were sweating, laughing from nerves, arguing with the experimenter, but still pressing. They are not sadists. They did it because there was a confident scientist standing next to them who took responsibility. One thing is important. In fact, no one was given an electric shock. After the experiments, people were initiated into the truth and the idea was explained. But it was this work that became one of the reasons to reconsider the ethics of psychological research. Today, deception and pressure are strictly limited, and each project goes through an ethics committee. Repeated checks showed the main thing that it is not about bad people, but about the conditions. The further away the victim, the higher the status of the authority, the more formal the situation, the higher the obedience. As soon as colleagues appear nearby who refuse to continue, obedience falls. Reduce the distance, remove symbols of power, give the person support, and it is easier for them to say no. This experiment does not answer all the questions about good and evil, but it does show honestly that an ordinary person can go very far if a confident "keep going" sounds nearby. And it also shows honestly how simple changes in the environment restore a person's will to stop. The boundary is not only within us, it is also in the context in which we are placed.
6,000-year-old human DNA. In the city of Wuxi, China, archaeologists have discovered the DNA of a person who lived here 6,000 years ago. These molecules were found in 2 tombs associated with the Middle Neolithic Majiabang culture. Until now, information about the inhabitants of this region has been limited. However, thanks to new finds, it became known that the first people settled in Wuxi at least 6,000 years ago. During the research, which began in April 2022, more than 100 traces of ancient human activity were found, including 2 tombs with DNA.
Mysterious objects that are 130,000 years old. Archaeological discoveries in the Racibórz region of Poland have shed light on the activities of Neanderthals more than 130,000 years ago. For 2 years, an international team of specialists, including from the universities of Wrocław and the University of Silesia, as well as the Czech Academy of Sciences, carried out research, planning to study the geological structure of the area. Professor Andrzej Wisniewski noted that the discovery of the stone tools was an unexpected gift. Artifacts found 10 meters underground in sediments formed during the last Ice Age show that Neanderthals visited the area and left traces of their presence here. Archaeologists have emphasized the uniqueness of some tools which have double-sided asymmetrical cutting surfaces reminiscent of modern broad-bladed knives. These tools may have been used for specific tasks, such as butchering, and analogs of such objects are rare at other ancient sites north of the Carpathians and the Alps. Mesopotamian clay balls. The clay balls, more than 5,500 years old, are still shrouded in mystery. These artifacts, ranging in size from golf balls to baseballs, were found at Chogamish in western Iran in the late 1960s. In total, about 150 such balls were discovered, which only increases the intrigue around their purpose. For a long time, the prevailing theory was that the balls were used as a kind of means of recording economic transactions. This assumption was based on the discovery of a 3,300-year-old ball containing 49 stones and cuneiform writing describing a deal with a shepherd. However, the exact function of these balls remained a mystery. In 2013, using computed tomography and 3D modeling, scientists took a look inside the balls. It turned out that they contained tokens of various shapes, which could serve as numerical signs for recording goods. Researchers are trying to understand the system by which these tokens are grouped within the balls. One of the surprising finds indicates that some tokens were wrapped in cloth and placed in a ball, then coated with a liquid similar to bitumen. Some balls had tiny channels, perhaps for thin threads that could serve as external markers and provide information about the contents. Similar objects have been found in various cultures of the time, including Scotland, where more than 400 carved stone balls from the Neolithic period have been discovered. What else do you think these mysterious artifacts could symbolize? Leave your guesses or in the comments. Lard from World War II. For decades after heavy storms, the sea on St. Cyrus Beach in Scotland has periodically washed up with lard which ended up at sea due to the sinking of a ship during the Second World War. Recently, the waves washed up 4 more pieces of lard, each one retaining the shape of the barrels in which they were probably stored all those years ago. These unusual relics became known to locals after the merchant ship carrying the lard was sunk by bombs. It is believed that with each new storm, the wreck gradually releases some of its cargo, washing up on the shore in fatty blocks. Locals are familiar with this phenomenon and claim that the lard, despite the crust of barnacles that covers it, is in good condition and is suitable for use. During the war, when access to lard was limited, such finds became real treasures, helping people survive difficult times. Sacrifice or war trophy. Archaeologists have found a Roman enamel brooch from the 2nd century AD. It was discovered at an Iron Age settlement in South Ayrshire, Scotland. The artifact may have been used in a foundation sacrifice ritual, providing new information about contacts between the Romans and local Britons. The excavations were carried out on the site of the William Grant & Sons distillery, where researchers found the remains of a large wooden house and a fortified palisade. The brooch was lying in a foundation ditch, which may indicate its ritual significance. Such brooches are found on the borders of the Roman Empire, in Gaul, Switzerland, and along the Rhine. Scientists suggest that it may have come to Scotland as a war trophy, the result of trade, or an offering to the gods. The Curra settlement, where the find was made, was in a strategic location. Although there were no Roman forts nearby, archaeologists have discovered traces of an ancient military camp. In addition to the brooch, artifacts from the Neolithic and Bronze Ages were found, confirming that the area had been inhabited for thousands of years.
Human blood on ancient mask. A gold mask from the Sican culture found on the northern coast of Peru contains traces of human blood. The Sican culture, which existed from 750 to 1375 AD, is known for its luxurious gold crafts, including funerary masks that were created during the Middle Sican period and often accompanied the elite in their tombs. In the 1990s, archaeologists excavated the tomb of one such elite. It contained a skeleton sitting upside down, painted bright red with cinnabar, with a gold mask covering a severed skull. Around the skeleton were the skeletons of 2 young women in labor and nursing positions, as well as 2 children. In a recent study, scientists analyzed the paint on the mask. identifying 6 proteins from human blood, including serum albumin and immunoglobulin G. Proteins from egg white, presumably from a Muscovy duck, were also found. Researchers believe that the presence of blood symbolized life force and could be linked to the idea of rebirth of the deceased. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.